Hello, my name is Dr. Saacha Spade, and I appreciate you taking the time out to come and check out this video, The Power of Trust. As it says, getting it is easy, keeping it is hard. So let's go through this information so you can find out exactly what you need to do to keep what you're building, pass it forward to those that are coming behind you, and also reconfigure your current reality right now. The information contained within this presentation is for educational purposes only. As with all new information, please do your own research to determine whether or not this information applies to your journey. All of the information given during this presentation is not to be construed or interpreted as legal advice. Therefore, if you would like to discuss whether or not to use this information for legal situations, please contact a state bar licensed attorney. Use of the telephone wire, internet, and/or internet IP servers or other related facilities connected to this presentation is explicitly without prejudice, without implied or tacit consent, without recourse to addressee and addressor herein, and constitutes no knowing, intelligent, voluntary waiver, express or implied in law, or fact waiver of rights of any nature at any time, and all such are explicitly and specifically private in nature between the intended parties and will be stringently enforced. All written material and attachments are private between the parties on this teleseminar, personal and confidential. They are also common law copyrighted work, product, and intellectual property of the Matrix Master, LLC, Dr. Saacha Spade, and all affiliated individuals, trusts, and companies. No reproduction or possession of the same is permitted without the express written consent of the above mentioned entities. So what all of that says basically is that, listen, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm not an attorney. If you want some legal advice about your specific situation, then find you an attorney to work with that can give you that information. Okay. Also, it's stating that this information, the way that I put it together, everything that goes with it, from the slides to the verbiage to the information that I deliver and the context that I deliver it in, is all intellectual property of the Matrix Master, myself, Dr. Saacha Spade, and all of the affiliated trusts and companies that I have, as well as any affiliated individuals that are connected to me. So if you take this information and you try to reproduce it and to go and market it as if it's yours, I will come after you. So that's the short version. So here we have what a technical definition of a trust is. And I tried to make this as plain as possible. But since I'm present, I'm going to make it even plainer just to ensure that we stay on the same page, because I don't want anybody overwhelmed by a bunch of definitions that they may not understand, okay? So a trust is basically an agreement that you put together. It's something that you put together um, for safekeeping purposes. You want to protect what it is that you have of value. You want to put it in a protective mechanism or in safekeeping so that the people that you want to benefit off of what it is that you're protecting can gain access to it without third parties stepping in and intruding or intervening or intercepting what it is that you want to pass. All right. And so it normally has four parties to it. I'm sorry, three parties to it. However, I believe in making sure that all the holes are covered, and I'm very proactive. So with the trust that we create, and help you with, they have 4 parties. So normally the trust would have a settlor, which is also known as a grantor, which is nothing more than the creator of the trust. Okay. Then we have the trustee, who is the controller over everything that's in that trust. All right, as well as the trust itself. Okay. Then we have the beneficiary. The beneficiaries have beneficial use on what's been placed in trust for their benefit and safekeeping. They don't have any control over anything. They're there strictly to benefit. That 4th party, which is normally not a part of trusts that are domestic within the United States, is a trust protector. That trust protector, I incorporate that into the trust because the trust protector make sure that the trustee does what the trustee is supposed to do. And so because there's different situations, you want to be able to make sure that if someone else steps in as trustee, you have a trust protector, another set of eyes or accountability that can make sure that everything that you set that trust up for is being handled. And the trust protector's job is to make sure that the trustee is doing their job. That's it. Okay? Hope that's plain. So here you can see the structure of the trust, and it has those parties that I just broke down for you in the previous slide. Basically, you have the settlor or grantor who establishes the trust and then injects something into the trust of value and then gives those trust instructions to the trustee in the trust documents. Okay, everything is laid out in the trust documents. Then you have the trustee who takes that instruction and then implements it and makes sure that everything that comes into that trust is for the benefit of the beneficiaries. And so all of those instructions that are laid out in the trust document that the settlor created, it's the trustee's job to follow those instructions for the benefit of the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries will receive benefit from that arrangement. So again, normally there's 3 parties. There's the settlor, grantor, same thing, which is nothing more than the creator. Then there's the trustee, who is the overseer of the trust as well as all of what's placed in trust for the beneficiary. And then you have the beneficiary that's just sitting back benefiting off of everything that the settlor and the trustee set in motion. Now, in this particular diagram, you also see the protector over there. Now, the protector, as it says, has limited special powers as set out in the trust deed. And so with the trust that I help you with, that trust protector is the one that's going to hold the trustee accountable to make sure that the trustee does what the trustee is supposed to do. And a lot of times, you know, initially, the person who gets the trust created is also the trust protector. Where the power of that comes in, is that if that initial trustee passes the ball to another trustee and tells that trustee to go ahead and control the trust, or if that first trustee passed away, then there has to be a successor trust protector in place to step up and make sure that everything that that trustee passed to them is being handled and that that trustee does not mismanage the trust, okay? And so that's the purpose and the power of the trust protector, and that's why it's there, because you always want someone else factored in the event that you're not able to control the trust and you have to pass that trust to someone else for control purposes. Then you have the trust assets at the bottom, which basically that's everything that's been being acquired, that's being placed in trust for the benefit of the beneficiaries. And so this is what the structure looks like, and it works very well because one party creates it, another party controls it, another party benefits, Another party makes sure that the person who controls it is doing what they're supposed to do and doing right by those that's supposed to benefit. And then you have the assets, which are protected from all outside infiltration based on the way that this structure is. Now I'm going to further explain the parties to the trust, even though we just went over it. I'm going to further go into detail just to give you a little bit more insight. So the settlor grantor is the person that creates the trust. And usually that person will sell or transfer or gift something into the trust as initial property of the trust, okay? And so hear me when I say that depending on the situation, the settlor does not have to own the property that's being placed in trust. The settlor can create the documents and then contribute $1 into the trust, contribute $10 into the trust, and now has turned that trust over to the trustee, where the trustee may be the one that's placing property, valuable property into the trust to make sure that, you know, they maintain control over it. Because if you have, say you have 100 acres of land and you decided, okay, I'm going to be the settlor on the trust, meaning I'm going to create the trust documents and things like that, and then I'm going to initially contribute this 100 acres. Well, then you have to appoint someone else as the trustee to control the 100 acres that you contributed into the trust. And you may not want to do that. So to ensure that the trustee, the trustee has control over whatever it is that's going to the trust. And once it's placed in the trust, you can't change your mind and say, okay, I'm going to take it back. So having someone that's just a settlor in name that creates that trust and then contributes something bare minimal into it will work as well, because once you have been appointed as the trustee, now you can add things of value in it for the beneficiaries. And a lot of times, that's not clear. So I want to make that clear on this call so that you understand that um, you can play a different position. You don't have to play the settlor position in order for the trust to be legitimate. Someone else can play that position and can contribute something to it, bare minimal, if at all, okay? And then you pick up the ball as trustee, you put in what you need to put in, and then you maintain control over it. And so, as I explained on here and how it's laid out, that trustee is the person who administers the affairs of the trust and controls the trust and holds the property that's in the trust for the beneficiary. Make sure that, everything is secure and does exactly what those trust documents say. And so that is the power position right there. That's the one that is understanding that they don't own anything, but they control everything. That's the one that's making the moves. And anybody can be a trustee. Okay, it's not based on credit or your record or what you've done. The fact of the matter is, you can be a trustee if you can be trusted. So if you're building something for your heirs, you want to be the trustee because you want to also pass that information on to show them how to be an effective trustee. And the only way that you can pass that information is by walking it out. All right. Now, the beneficiaries are those that, they ultimately benefit off of everything that's in the trust. So they have no control, they have no say so, they have, they can't tell the trustee what to do with what's in the trust. They can't, demand anything. Their job is to kick back and benefit. Okay? So if you have children or if you have family members or if you, whatever, you have someone that you want to benefit off of what you're doing, and you want to make sure that they benefit in a way to where if something happened to you, you don't have to end up in a courtroom. This is the way to go. And so those beneficiaries, they just sit back and they benefit. That's it, that's all. Okay? And then the trust protector, that's the person that oversees the trustees. That's who the trustees answer to. And so it just that trust protector makes sure that the trustee is adhering to the purpose and intentions that the trust was created for. So it's another party that is like, hey, I see that you're doing this move. I just want to make sure that this is the benefit the beneficiaries, and it's not for, some other purpose aside from what this trust was created for. And so I hope that that's clear, but I just needed to give you that insight so you would understand how to maximize these positions, because it's all about strategy. And a lot of times people just have this linear thinking of just this can only be done one way. No, there's flexibility in the way that the strategy is built depending on how you need to be set up personally, okay, and what's best for you. And so I set my clients up in a way to where they're protected. And a lot of times, you know, you have other parties that may not understand the way that I do what I do, but you know, all in all, it's always for the benefit of the trustee and the beneficiaries. It's always there to make sure that the trustee can have control over what it is that's being acquired, and that the beneficiaries ultimately receive what it is that they're supposed to be receiving without third parties stepping in and trying to invade the ship. So here we're going to talk about statutory versus non-statutory. And really, this is very simple. A lot of times people get thrown off with the verbiage. So I'm going to break it down for you just very, very, very simple, okay? So the root word of statutory, if you think of state, okay, or statute, okay? Statutory means that there is some state involvement. That's the cut and dry version. The state is involved in what it is that you're doing. So, for instance, when you set up an LLC, when you set up a corporation, you have to file those documents with the Secretary of State because, the state is involved. They give you permission to go into business. They give you permission to use that name. And then, normally you pay them a fee annually to make sure that that entity is kept in good standing because you're doing business under their state or statutory jurisdiction. All right? So that's the simple version of it. Now, non-statutory is something that the state is not involved in. Because if there's a statutory, then there's a non-statutory. So a lot of times people try to act as if non-statutory is not valid. No, non-statutory is very valid. It's private arrangements, private agreement. There's common law. There's things that we do that the state doesn't get involved with. When I go to drink some water, the state is not involved with that transaction. I don't have to get the state's permission to drink water. But if I was to go to, say, a lake or something, and you got the government that's over that lake or that park, and then I go to, siphoning water out of it, or, I go to pour some dye into the water or something like that, well, then the state is involved in that because that's a government jurisdiction. And so non-statutory basically means that the government is not involved what it is that you're doing. The state is not involved in what you're doing, and you have that right to contract. I have the right to contract with whoever I want to contract with without getting the state's permission. So that's what non-statutory is. And it's based on your right to enter into an agreement with another private party. And we don't have to file any documents with the state to get permission to enter into an agreement. If you sell me something, you got some shoes that I want, and you say, okay, I'll sell these to you for $100 and I give you $100. Well, the state is not involved in that. We didn't go to the state to get permission. So those are non-statutory transactions. So the trust that I deal with, you have some trusts that you have to file paperwork with. The state, different states may offer a trust. I believe Delaware offers a trust, Nevada offers a trust. You have some states that offer trust, and you have to file that paperwork through the state. And in essence, it's public record. With the trust that I help my clients with, they're private. They're private agreements. And so that's why they're called private trusts. Nobody is involved in that. Nobody should be able to come and tell you or see what it is that your trust agreement says, because it's a private situation. And so it's not like with statutory documents where you have to file them with the Secretary of State or with the county recorder, and then they're public record and anybody could look it up and see, what you got going on and, things of that nature. No, this is private agreements. This is private transactions. This is how you take advantage of your right to contract with another party, and you're setting up this private trust for the benefit of your beneficiaries, and you're doing it in private. You don't need nobody else's consent or permission or agreement about doing this. And so that's the difference between statutory and non-statutory. So don't get thrown off by those words. When you hear statutory, that just means state involvement. Okay? When you hear non-statutory, that just means the government's not involved. All right? And so that's the cut and dry version, and I hope that that's clear. Non-statutory, we don't put those documents into the public venue because it ain't nobody's business. Statutory, they make you put them into the public venue so that people can, see what it is that you're doing, and they can make sure that there's no conflict of interest with you using a name that somebody else has used and things of that nature, because they ultimately want to keep record and make sure that they tax you properly. Okay? All right. Trusts are created for different reasons. You're probably never going to find two people who have the same intention for why they set up their trust. These are typically the reasons why people use trust. Some people use it for asset protection. Some people use it because they need something to create generational wealth in without a lot of the tax burdens that come with that. Some people use it for preserving the wealth that they've acquired or that they're building, to make sure that it gets to their future generations without intrusion, interception, or intervention. Some people create trust for business purposes. They want to run their business out of the trust. Some people do it for tax mitigation. Some people do it for banking advantages, because there's specific accounts that you can set up when you have a trust in place. Some people do it for privacy purposes because they don't want anybody in their business. And then some people do it for securing their legacy, because they want to make sure that those that are coming behind them and everything that they have built is stabilized in a way to where it's on an unshakable foundation. So what is the purpose that I create trust for with my clients? Usually it's all of these. Usually the people that come to me understand that they cannot own anything, but they're here to be good stewards. And they want to make sure that they maximize the ability to set up a trust, and because it's available to anybody. It doesn't matter what your record is. It doesn't matter, none of that matters. Your credit, none of that matters. Anybody can set up a trust. And so if you want to play on the same side that the controllers are playing on, and you want to put your future generations in a powerful position, then it takes a mental switch of how you're transacting. And all of these right here, you can maximize setting up a trust, and you can do all of this within that trust and take full advantage of the trust, instead of just focusing on one aspect, such as, protecting a house or car, or, whatever, or running a business, or, you know, uh, figuring out a strategy to reduce your taxes. No, everything is available to you when you set up a properly constructed trust. That's the power of trust. That's why I named this presentation the power of trust, because trusts are so powerful, and we don't understand that we can totally reconfigure our reality by just shifting our mind to handle business a totally different way. Okay, so this is all available to you by setting up a trust, if it's the right type of trust that you set up. And you need to have the information and on that, which is why we're going over this right now. Now we want to deal with revocable versus irrevocable. So you have the trust, you have some that are statutory, meaning the state is involved, you have some that are non-statutory, meaning they're private. All right, then you have these two categories of revocable or irrevocable. Now revocable, the shortcut version, all of these are listed, but the shortcut version is that a revocable is seen as a temporary situation. Irrevocable is seen as permanent. All right. The revocable is the weakest for protection. So if anybody has a problem with you and you have something in an irrevocable trust, they still got action at those assets or at what it is that you have in that trust. With the irrevocable trust, that's not the case. It's the strongest for protection. Everything in it is untouchable. So, you want to be mindful of the type of trust that you set up, because all trusts are not created equal. Sometimes I talk to people and they say, "Oh, I got a trust," or "Yeah, I heard about that," or I talked to an attorney and I was going to get, they were going to do a trust for me. And the thing is, all trusts are not created equal. So if you're not informed about what it is that you're getting, then you don't really know the power of the trust that you have. So it's very important to understand the differences, and when you do things a certain way, how it's primarily set up. Because most of the time, if you're dealing with, say, living trust or will or something like that, a will is not a trust, but if you're dealing with a living trust, for instance, that's triggered by the death of the person whose living trust it is. And so once that person transitions, then that successor trustee's job is to start distributing stuff to the people that were named in that living trust, or doing things with the assets according to that person who living trust it was specified in those documents. Sometimes the living trust can still end you up in probate, and sometimes it won't, just depending on how tight it is and how it's put together. However, that's normally triggered, and so it's like looked at as a DBA, as if that person was doing business as a trust. The assets were not separate from them, they were just quote unquote in a trust. And if somebody had a problem with them or tried to sue them, or if they got behind on their taxes or anything like that, then those assets that were quote unquote in that trust are still up for grabs. And so you have to be careful when you're setting up the trust, that you understand, what benefit it provides and if it's really protecting you or not. With the irrevocable, it's a permanent situation. It's designed to last. It can last and last and last, okay? And it's the strongest for protection because those assets are considered to be separate from you. So you put something in an irrevocable trust and somebody got a problem with you, well, those assets in that irrevocable trust are not seen as being yours anymore. They're seen as belonging to the trust. And so that person is just basically not able to capitalize on what it is that you've put in the irrevocable trust, unless you put it in there through fraudulent conveyance. And fraudulent conveyance just means that you had the intention of evading something, so you threw it in a trust to try to protect it, but you really owed somebody something and somebody else was entitled to what you put into that trust. So that's seen as fraudulent conveyance. But if there's no issues and you just want to protect what it is that you have, say you put it in there and then somebody has a problem with you that really is not entitled to it, but they just trying to figure out how to take what it is that you have, that property is protected is secured because it's in an irrevocable trust, and it's not considered to be yours. So you want to just make sure that when you're thinking about getting a trust, or you're having these conversations about getting a trust, you want to know exactly what type of protection that it provides, because a lot of times people get revocable trust and they think that they have asset protection qualities, and they don't. And then they're like, well, I thought that, you know, I was straight. I thought that this was going to protect me and my family. No, that's not what that's designed for. That irrevocable trust is not designed to protect your legacy. That revocable trust, I'm sorry, is designed to just put something to the side as if you're doing business with a trust, and have a temporary house for it until an event is triggered. Where this irrevocable trust, that's designed for legacy, that's designed for longevity, that's designed for wealth preservation, that's designed to make sure that you're not lawsuit attractive to somebody that's just out here trying to lurk around and see what they can get their hands on while you're building something. So you want to always make sure that you check and see and do your due diligence about what type of trust you're considering getting. And if you don't know, you need to ask questions, because not all trusts are created equal. So here's a list of all of the trusts that I deal with. Okay. Personal family trust, business trust, real estate investment trusts or REITs, charitable trust, real estate trust, and intellectual property trust. And I'm starting to venture off into charitable remainders. But all in all, these are all private trusts. These are all the trusts that, you know, I've drafted, that, I work with my clients on, depending on what their needs are, because everybody has different needs. And so, to make sure that they're covered, I have personally drafted some trust, and there are some attorneys that even are licensing my trust and offering them to their clients because of how tight they are. And so my job is to make sure that you're bulletproof. And I drafted these because these are typically the ones that people use. In the process of drafting one for Canadian clients. And then also, there's also offshore asset protection trust and things of that nature. So I'm gonna continue to evolve the trust game and my ability to draft, trust according to what my clients need. However, right now, this is what I offer, and these are the ones that are most in demand. The intellectual property trust, for instance, is for people that, they're online entrepreneurs. They have a lot of IP. They have a lot of intellectual property. They want to figure out, how to protect it, and at the same time, get the benefits that the trust provides. So it's structured to protect their intellectual property, and it also has those other qualities that we went over in the previous slide, such as asset protection, tax mitigation, wealth creation, generational wealth creation, generational wealth preservation, business purposes and things of that nature. But the primary purpose for structuring that is to protect the intellectual property. So it's intellectual property trust. You have real estate investment trust, where companies like Hilton, Marriott, those are REITs. Those are situations where they are acquiring properties and they have investors who contribute, and so they're real estate investment trusts. The purpose for them are for, to go out and capitalize on the real estate market, and they want to be able to accept funds and finances from investors who want to join that venture with them. However, they want to do it under a more private veil versus a corporation or something of that nature. And so, everything has its purpose. The personal and family trust, those are for people that have a family. They want to set up a family trust, or, a personal trust, beneficial trust, and they want to make sure that, they incorporate their children and things of that, they've set that up for their family. And so everything is not created equal. Like I've said, all trusts are not created equal. So you want to make sure that you know what type of trust you're getting. And there are so many different flavors of trust, but for me, these are the ones that I primarily deal with, because these are the ones that are most common in my world. These are the ones that the people that come to me, they have situations where these apply. And so, this is all available to anyone that is in need of a trust. And I can pretty much guarantee that whatever situation you have going on is going to fall under one of these categories. So why is this so important? A variety of reasons. I mean, basically, because I'm giving you the shortcut version and making this as empowering as possible for you to understand, I want you to take advantage of this information. We have to do something different. There's so much available to us that we don't know about. We don't know what we don't know. And the way that we have been transacting and the way that the transactions that we inherited come with the mindset that we inherited. And so, because of the mindset that we inherited and the knowledge and the things that we were taught, we weren't taught this. We weren't taught how to maximize the matrix. We were not taught that ownership is an illusion. We were not taught that we are here to be good stewards, even though they touch on it in church, occasionally through a scripture about stewardship. This is the key to winning this game, is understanding that we can't own anything. We are not here to be owners. We're here to be in control over what has been entrusted into our care. And so, in order to do that effectively, as well as maximize your ability to make moves in this matrix, and then you want to make sure that you have privacy. You want to be able to move, you know, harmless as a dove, wise as a serpent. You want to be able to move in silence. You don't see a snake coming. You don't see a serpent coming. You just look, and then there's one that's right there. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to move very covert and, very strategic, because this game is real. It's not anything to play with. And contracts and commerce run the world. And so, how we're transacting now is the reason why we are so far behind and why the wealth gap is the way that it is, because we didn't have the knowledge. Now that we have the knowledge, we got to level up and change the way that we're doing everything so that we can pass this information to those that are coming behind us and make sure that it continues so that history doesn't repeat itself. And so there's privacy restoration. Um, it, Using a trust protects you from legal attack, meaning you're not lawsuit attractive when you don't own anything. Because one of the first things that an attorney will do when someone comes in to talk about suing you is to look you up to see what you own, to see if it's even worth the trouble to suing you. They ain't suing nobody that don't have anything, because they have to get their fees paid. They're looking at how they can get their attorney's fees paid, how they can, maximize this opportunity to litigate against you. And so if you don't own anything, there's nothing to take. You're not attractive to someone that's looking to get something if you don't own anything. It doesn't matter what's in your control. It's about what has been titled to you. You can control everything, but if it's not titled to you, they don't have a right to take it. Okay? It restores your rights. It restores your rights in a way to where you're able to make moves without feeling threatened, because you understand that you can't own anything. God owns all. You understand that you don't own anything, so there's nothing to take. So it gives you another sense of power. It shifts the liability away from you. When you own things and something goes wrong, you are ultimately liable. But when you take the perspective that the source of all owns everything here, and you're just here to manage what's been placed into your care, then all that liability that comes with owning, you don't own nothing, so can't nobody come at you about nothing that goes wrong because you don't own it. So you're not liable. There's tax mitigation benefits. Depending on how your strategy is set up, your taxes can be reduced and you can, come out on top like all of these other people be coming out on top making, all of this revenue and then paying zero taxes at the end of the year. There's trusts that are factored into their strategy somewhere, especially the types of trusts that I deal with, because the trusts that I deal with are on the same level as the controllers use. They're on that same level. So there's loopholes available. They had to leave a loophole for themselves. They're not paying all of those taxes like those that don't have the knowledge are paying, because they're responsible for the system. And so, of course, they're going to benefit off of it. And so there's so much advantage that comes into banking security. There's types of bank accounts at the bank that if the economy crashed tomorrow and you got your resources in the wrong type of bank account, you're going to be subject to that FDIC insurance, which I don't understand how you can insure promises to pay, because the currency that we use, they're promissory notes, but that's a whole nother topic. However, if you have the wrong type of account set up, then you're not going to be able to get your money. And there's people that have millions and millions of dollars in the bank, and they don't understand that there's FDIC insurance, meaning in the event that there's an economical collapse, they're only going to get back a small fraction of the Federal Reserve notes that they had in that account. But when you have a properly constructed trust and you have the right type of trust account, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. There's third parties that want to attack you, want to come and take what it is that you have. You don't have anything. So it goes back to owning nothing, controlling everything. Okay? Trusts are the highest up on the food chain that you can go as far as in commerce. So being a trustee is a power play. And like I said, it's not predicated on your history, your criminal record, your credit, none of that. It's predicated on the fact, can you be trusted? And are you putting yourself in a position to be trusted to make moves for those that are coming behind you? That's the qualification. That's what you want to look for if you're looking for someone to be the trustee and you decide to be the settler, and you want someone else to be in control. You want to find someone that's trustworthy. The key word in trustee is trust. The key word in trust is trust. Okay, so these are all things. You're stabilized legally. You have security for the inheritance for your dependents, and you have protection for your businesses. If your businesses are structured a certain way and you have trusts that are factored into that structure, then a properly developed strategy, you can win, and you can alleviate all of the headaches and things like that just come with being exposed. And so again, the objective here is to make sure that you're bulletproof. That's my objective, is to give you the information to make sure that you're bulletproof out here in this world, because shots are fired from every direction. The chances that somebody's going to try to come take what you have far outweigh the chances that they're not. And if you're out here making moves and you're doing business and you have a vision and you have a purpose and you have things that you're called to do, then you want to make sure that your foundation is set up properly. You want to make sure that you're building something to last, that you don't have to worry about somebody taking from you along the way. So it's a total paradigm shift when you take on this mindset. That's why this is so important. So, how do the wealthy maneuver? So, with everything that we've covered by now, you should see clearly the difference between those that have and those that don't. The have and the have-nots are not about money. The have and the have-nots are about the knowledge. Some people have the knowledge, some people don't. Those that do have been playing for keeps. Those that don't have the knowledge have just been playing, not even understanding the rules to this game. This matrix is designed a specific way, and those that control it have created a loophole for themselves within it to make sure that as mastermind individuals, they have the ability to transact on a certain level. The rest of us that did not have that knowledge are victim minds who have been looking for someone outside of us to give us permission to level up or to pave the way or to deal with us fairly or to recognize that our life matters and all of those things, which the mastermind don't do none of that. The mastermind masters self, because the mastermind recognizes that if you don't master self, you're going to be mastered by default. So the wealthy have been using these private trusts, these trusts, since the days of Julius Caesar, okay? And the way that everything is structured, we talked about the corporations, the LLCs, and the nonprofits and all those things that are statutory that you have to file in the public venue and that people can, get information on by looking it up on the Secretary of State. They use those for the public eye, because they know the public needs to see something. So they set these things up in the public, and then they give the ability for the public to pay attention to these things. And these entities, these statutory entities, make a lot of money, but ultimately the profits don't stay into those statutory entities. The profit end up in invisible mechanisms, which are trusts. And so that's why you can only follow the breadcrumbs so far. Because although it says, okay, this company is worth such and such, or this company generated such and such, after they're finished with their expenses and the bills that they have to pay, they're not keeping that money in those businesses. They're putting them in situations where they can control off the grid to where nobody will be able to find it. They have the right type of account set up. They're putting their money in different vehicles, such as trust accounts, such as life insurance policies, such as the stock market. Like they're converting their revenue into profitable situations that will continue to generate revenue and to ensure that what they've built will be kept. So they're not just sitting there logging into their account, their business account, and then seeing, oh, we got 660,000, or I'm sorry, $660 million in this Citibank. No, they're doing what they have to do to put that money to work and getting it off the grid and out of access so that can't nobody take it and they can remain in control. A lot of times we are looking at this system as a situation of right and wrong. So we're spending our time focusing on right and wrong. That's not right, that's wrong. This is not right, that's wrong. But this reality is only designed for control. It's not designed for right and wrong. We're the ones that's focused on right and wrong and fair and not fair. There's two systems inside of this system. There's two sets of rules. There's a set of rules for masters. There's a set of rules for slaves. That's just the reality of it. And I'm not trying to insult you. This is just the playing field. We are playing like slaves. We are transacting like slaves. We're not transacting like mastermind individuals, because we're constantly looking for permission and thinking it's somebody else's responsibility to give us permission to be free and to level up. Where the mastermind individual, the masters of this reality, they have this down to a T. They're operating a certain way. They're passing that information to their descendants to make sure that their descendants come into this reality operating a certain way to stabilize their position. And that is what this teleseminar is for, to help us to switch that mind and to make sure that we get to a powerful position for those that are coming behind us, and that we return to being masters over our reality instead of slave-minded, victim-minded individuals that we have been reduced to, and that we are so focused on being. We have been stagnant, and now we're being called to um to get restored back to our original position. And that's going to cause that can only happen if we have a paradigm shift in our mind. So this reality has two sets of rules, and it's up to us which one we want to play by. Personally, I don't want to play by the victim mind, the rules that are set up for victims. I want to play by the ones that are set up for masters, and I want my descendants to have that knowledge so that they can do the same. I don't want them at a disadvantage. And so we each have to make that decision on what side of the fence that we want to play on. And then once we make that decision, we have to make the sacrifices to ensure that we level up right now and that we get the knowledge and pass it forward for those that are coming behind us. Many of us, we are just thinking for today. We're not thinking for longevity. Hopefully, after this teleseminar, this will change. I included this into the teleseminar, not to dive into it, but just to let you know that this is a diagram of how one of the banking families, the Rockefellers, are set up. This is, and since this diagram was created, I'm sure that it's even more extensive. So we just have to level up our thinking. We think that, having everything in our name is even too much to keep up with, and we focus on building credit, and we focus on, playing in commerce as individuals, not understanding that our social security number is not ours. The Social Security Administration belongs to the Queen of England, that the identifications that we use are not ours per se. That's not us on the ID or the driver's license. We look because our face is on it. We think that it's us. We may get a business or something like that and, you know, have ourselves as the owner and really think that we balling out of control and we doing something. Now, I'm not shooting anybody's effort down, but if you look at this diagram, then you will see they don't have all their eggs in one basket. They got so much going on that you would never even know that it's connected to the whole. Everything appears to be separate. They have everything organized. They have, their business ventures in specific type of vehicles that are connected to other vehicles that are connected to other vehicles. And this is the blueprint that they pass. And like I said, since this was developed, I'm sure that it's even more extensive. So we have to really level up our thinking and stop looking at things as complicated. If we're playing for longevity and we want those that are coming behind us to be able to win the game, then we have to be very strategic. Like I said, harmless as doves, wise as serpents. You would never know. Some of these are probably even in the same industry, and it makes you think that you have a choice. So, for instance, Burger King versus McDonald's. You thinking that you're going to McDonald's, and that McDonald's is owned by one person and Burger King is owned by another. And then it turns out that they're owned by the same. So this is what a constant illusion is in this reality, is the illusion of choice. Many of these companies provide several products on the same in the same industry and make you think that you have a choice, and you think that they're competitors, but they're really competing with themselves. And that's where we need to move to. So I put this diagram in there just to give you some insight on how those that are in control are staying in control while we're focused on being individuals, building credit, and keeping an 800 credit score. That is not going to outlive us. Our credit score is not beneficial to those that are coming behind us. Once we transition, they can't establish credit anymore in our name. They can't live off of that. So we have to make moves on a greater scale than just focusing on today. Speaking of the Rockefellers, it's their wisdom that helped unlock my mindset, because the clues are always right there in front of you. You just have to pay attention. Everything is hidden in plain sight. And so their motto is, the secret to success is not ownership, it is control. And that one phrase has so much packed within it, so much that it uncovers about this reality and how everything is set up. The secret of how they're successfully controlling this reality is because they're not focused on ownership, because they know they can't own anything. They know that everything here is about controlling what's been entrusted into your care. Even if they have manipulated things to their advantage to make sure that they're in control, they can never be held guilty of trying to own anything. They're here being stewards. And in their mind, they're here being good stewards, because people like us who refuse to master ourselves and are looking for someone else to master us by default and think for us and make decisions for us while we're doing all of these things to give our power to someone else, they're being good stewards over us because we don't know what to do with ourselves. If we know what to do with ourselves, we don't need anybody to be the steward over us. We will master ourselves and be good steward over the things that God has entrusted into our care. But the reason why they're in that position is because we're not mastering ourselves. We're not being good stewards over ourselves. So someone else has to do it. So when we look at things that way, we should be inspired to want to level up. We should be ready to take the necessary steps to live by that motto, because obviously it's worked very well for them, as well as for those that adhere to that principle. They're giving you the game right there. The secret to success is not ownership, it is control. So if that's the secret to success, then that means the secret to failure is ownership. So if we want to succeed, then we have to make the mental switch from focusing on owning something when commerce is not designed for us to own anything anyway. Stop playing that game. Stop putting ourselves in harm's way with all this liability and things like that, making ourselves lawsuit attractive and making these attorneys rich off of coming after us and building something only to have everything taken away from us, and people that don't mean us any good, trying to find out how they could take what it is that we are building, working hard to build for those that we are responsible for. And many of them don't want to do the work or don't know how to do the work. So instead of doing the work, they'll just come and swoop in and take what you've built. And so the secret to success is not ownership, it is control. Once you control, you can't have nothing taken away from you because you don't own anything. And that is what I'm trying to drive home with you all today. So I appreciate you all taking the time to come and listen to this teleseminar. Because whether we want to believe it or not, trusts run the world. Everything is a trust. The Federal Reserve is a trust. The identification that we use is a trust. The Social Security Administration is a trust. The revenue that we pass is owned by a trust. Everything is a trust. The money system that was in place before the Federal Reserve was a trust. It was called the money trust. The banking families, they all have everything in trust. Trust is the key word. That's the key word, trust. Trust what? Trust my ability to know what's best for my family by making this move. Trust my ability to know who you are by putting you in control over what I'm building. Everything is about trust. And that is where we're missing it. It's not just about having a lot of wealth and getting rich and all of these different things. It's about establishing a legacy. It's about making the mental switch to first deal with yourself and understand that you're transacting like a slave. And you can't be calling yourself a god or goddess or a king or queen and you out here transacting like a slave. The credit and the social security number and that identification, those are things that should be our slaves. We should be using those to acquire things in the matrix and then turn around and alchemizing it by putting it in private trust where it's out of the jurisdiction of those that can come back and take it. But we're not thinking on that level. We just think because possession is 9/10 of the law, we're forgetting that the other 1/10 is title. We're forgetting that we're paying registration fees and we're paying taxes and county taxes and taxes on our properties and things of that nature. So we stop missing those payments. Someone can come in and swoop and take it. What it is that we're building. We're not putting it in stabilized position to make it difficult for anyone that has ulterior motives or that's trying to keep us on the rat race chasing ownership when we can't ever become owners. And so this is why it's important to make these moves because we have to level up. Mastering self, being self-master, knowledge of self, all of those things are important. And once you start remembering who you truly are, you can't transact the same. You have to level up on every level. Contracts, again, contracts and commerce rule the planet. They rule the planet. And so how you're passing currency, how you're transacting, all of those things matter because you're entering into contracts that you don't even know about. Every time you pass those greenbacks, swipe a card, write a check, do a transfer. When you're dealing on the seas of commerce, you're constantly entering into a world of contracts, silent contracts that we don't know anything about. So trusts do run the world. And we need to start participating because there's a current wealth transfer that is in place. There's a change of the guards. And if we don't have the right mechanism set up for our divine inheritance, bottom line is we're not going to receive it. The Almighty, the divine, the source of all is not going to give you a divine inheritance for you to put it in an individual bank account connected to your social security number so that when the economy collapses, it can go right back into the hands of the bankers. See, these are tools that also work metaphysically to help you manifest what it is that you know you're supposed to have. And so a lot of us are, well, when I get some money, I'll get a trust. No, you will never get the money until you get the trust. You got to set the trust up and have your foundation established right. Just like you're building a house. You don't put the walls and the ceiling and the windows and the carpet in. You lay that foundation, make sure that house is going to be stabilized through no matter what kind of wind comes, what type of storms come. Economically, your house is not built on sinking sand. These are all biblical principles, but they're also common sense. So setting up your trust should be your first priority. You shouldn't be focused on building a bunch of things and getting a bunch of things that are connected to your social security number just to prove that you own something that you don't own. Again, trust run the world. And so if you're ready to level up, I have an opportunity for you that you can take advantage of, and it's not going to cost you that much to participate, and you can utilize this information that you purchase over and over and over again as much as you need to for you and your family, and it's a one-time purchase. So I'm doing my part to give you the information. Now it's your part to make a small sacrifice that's going to stabilize your legacy multi-generationally. So if you want to take advantage of what it is that I've built for you, it's a personal protection pack, and all of the details for it is at preserveyourlegacy.com, and it's going to have everything that you need to take care of your affairs and also set up your initial irrevocable trust so that you can start converting over to becoming a trustee and learn how to maneuver. You know, it has all of the instructions inside of it. It tells you basically everything that you need to do. And if there's anything that you are unclear about, there is a 24-hour email support available that will answer any questions that you may have. Because you came and did the work, because I'm a firm believer in doing the work. All of us need to do the work on ourselves. And I appreciate the fact that you lasted until the end of this teleseminar. You go to preserveyourlegacy.com and you put the discount code level up. You will receive 50% off of the cost to get yourself set up. It's an instant download. You receive the documents immediately, and you can start diving into doing what you need to do to get yourself and your family in position. And then from there, you take those steps, and more things will be entrusted into your care, and you can continue to evolve. And who knows, you may get to a point to where you need my assistance, and I'll be available if I'm still on this planet. I will be available. There will be the availability there for you to work with me, and I will assist you. However, this is something that you can do for yourself, and it's not that expensive. And I wanted to provide this option for those that can't afford to work with me right now. You know, I don't want you to not have the information. However, you have to put some type of energy exchange into getting your hands on this solution, because I can't just give it to you. You won't value it. So what I'm willing to do is to give you 50% off. You use that discount code level up, and you take the steps to do what you need to do to protect your family. And I'm here to support you all the way. For those that are not ready, or still, feel like they need more information, by all means, go ahead and do your research. This offer is going to be up indefinitely, so whenever you're ready, go ahead and make that move and get that info. Come back and listen to this teleseminar as much as you need to. Share it with someone else and get in the know. You can research anything that I've said. I have no problem with it. You'll be able to find it if you're looking for it. And I appreciate you at least being willing to hear the information. Now, what you do from here is totally up to you. You may think you can't afford it to make the move, but really you can't afford not to. If you're trying to reconfigure your reality and take control over your affairs, you got to take the steps to do that, because we have to do the work. There's no way around it. So I appreciate y'all. I love you. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out. Go to info@poweroftrusts.com. Send a question there, and someone will respond to you within 24 to 48 hours. All right? Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you inside of freedom. Peace.